precision, consistency, and commitment. These are defining words to success in endurance racing, but once there was a man who pushed consistency beyond computers. The man who was many times far from the best car, far from being on the right time in the right place, and he's still being called Mr. Le Mans. But his story doesn't even begin in the glamorous world of Le Mans or in the polished paddocks of Formula One. Tom Kristensen has spent most of his childhood around the Old Father gas station in Hobro. Carl Erik Kristensen was himself partly a racing driver, quite modest in achievements, but certainly rich in passion. He was the sort of a man who passes the buck to his children not through the ambition, but through the love of petrol. By the time the young Tom was climbing into go-karts in the late 1970s, Denmark was far from cradle of international motorsport. This country didn't offer the same raw competition as the Great Britain or Italy, where car racing means everything. However, after Tom consistently beat rivals in Nordic karting events including Mika Häkkinen, it was time to move on global scale. In 1991, Tom has entered the German Formula 3 and started to show talent as never before. He won races at Zolder, Nürburgring, Hockenheim, added 4 more podiums across the year and became a champion. Michael Schumacher had won the same series just 2 years before, so suddenly Tom Kristensen's name was being whispered as a possible Scandinavian F1 superstar. It was only a matter of time which team would test Tom directly in Formula 1 car. However, instead of moving straight to F1, Tom has decided to take more unusual path across the globe. He moved into Japanese Formula 3 Championship and immediately established himself as adaptable driver. Actually, he hadn't traveled to Japan to only casually compete in Formula cars. He was also gaining experience across widely different prototypes in the Japanese Touring Car Championship, and if that wasn't enough, he also attended All Japan Sports Car Championship. Tom's talent and famous adaptability helped him to excel in all of these categories, but most importantly, he claimed win at Fuji International and finished second in the Street Hell Macau Grand Prix. By securing another few podiums and consistent drive across the season, he became officially Formula 3 champion. These were times when Tom was almost converted Japanese driver. However, just 4 days before the start of 1997 Le Mans, he got a last-minute phone call about offer you can't refuse. David Jones, who drove for US Racing Porsche, didn't fully recover from earlier injuries and Tom was supposed to replace him. So there you have 29-year-old Dane, largely unknown outside single-seater and touring car circles, suddenly dropped into the biggest endurance race in the world. Not even talking about the fact that he has never raced at La Sarthe circuit. He had to learn the track on the fly and mastering its mix of flat-out straights and tricky technical sections, and even getting used to changing environment. As the open-stop Porsche was never a winning contender and Tom was just a rookie, the expectations were modest. Endurance racing rewards not the driver who is the fastest for one lap, but the one who can adapt, endure and keep going when everything seems against him. Once the race began, Tom's co-driver Mikel Alboreto took the green flag and immediately secured 3rd place. It was a tough fight with factory GT1, but suddenly things started to play in Mikel's favor. Mercedes retired both cars, McLaren struggled with race pace, and even the factory Porsche caught fire. Tom's chance was just waiting ahead in the evening, and after a couple of first laps, his pace was not only competitive, but sometimes quicker than his veteran teammates. When the sun rose on Sunday, all major factory teams of Mercedes, McLarens and factory Porsches were out of the game, and after 24 hours, team of Mikel Alboreto, Stefan Johansson and Tom Kristensen crossed the finish line first, officially winning Le Mans 24-hour race. But before we get to expanding his legacy, I just wanna thank you for 350 subs we reached last week. It's quite modest achievement, but I believe it's only a start of a bigger journey, so really, Thank you so much for watching. Tom Kristensen has always been short of money, and the prime example of how much teams appreciated his driving speed and technical knowledge is just the sheer list of Formula 1 teams he tested for. Through the 1990s, Tom had the opportunity to try cars from Tyrrell, Williams, Minardi and Stewart. Under normal circumstances, it would only be a matter of time which of these teams would give a Tom chance. However, every time he got close, the barrier was funding and timing. Formula 1 in the 1990s was brutally commercial, and teams like Minardi and Arrows survived only on paid drivers. The frontrunners had long waiting lists of drivers with either titles, sponsors or political connections, none of which Tom Kristensen's had. So with unsuccessful enter of Formula 1, Tom was forced to expand his legacy in other racing series, and luckily in the early 2000s, Audi was just entering Le Mans with immense factory fundings to take the ultimate control over endurance racing. And since Tom himself proved as a very fast, consistent and professional driver who could deliver the best results, Audi took a risk, and the message, which Tom will make very clear in the next few years, is pretty simple. Money don't buy talent. From 2000 to 2002, Audi and Kristensen won Le Mans 3 times in a row. He was only 35 and his stints in those races already became legendary. They are stories of him consistently lapping at qualifying pace in the middle of the night, pulling out 2 or 3 seconds per lap on rivals when most of the drivers were just trying to survive. So, when Bentley entered Le Mans with the Speed 8 in 2003, Tom was loaned to Bentley and of course he won again, sharing the car with Rinaldo Capello and Guy Smith, bringing Bentley their first time Le Mans win since 1924. We could talk about how the Project Bentley was a big sandbagging bubble made by Volkswagen Group, but still that's only half the work. The other one is to even finish. Just a year later, he went straight back to Audi and kept winning. 2004, 2005 and wait a sec.
Geht es ganz eng hier zur Sache. Sofort. Und der Tom dreht sich.
Sofort der Konter von Bruno Spengler und ein heftiger Unfall. Ach du grüne Neune, hoffentlich ist da nichts passiert.
Audi was just warming up with Tom's career and sent him for another spectacular journey to DTM. He was supposed to go head-to-head with the biggest legends, and it was brutal discipline, probably the biggest challenge you can have in GT-style cars. You have to face ultra-close combat, huge manufacturer's pressure, sprint race aggression, everything in the exact opposite of endurance racing. It's fair to say that Tom was never a DTM standout star. He never won championships, but he collected victories and proved he could thrive in yet another totally different discipline. His best season was 2005, when he won multiple races and finished 3rd in the championship, only losing to Gary Peffet and Matthias Ekström. The fact that he could jump between 24-hour races and DTM sprints sometimes in the same month spoke everything about Tom's versatility. However, that crash in 2007, which you have just seen, changed many things. Tom suffered serious injuries from broke vertebrae in his neck and sustained a long concussion. It was a crash that could have easily ended anyone's career from day to day, and for a while it was unclear if he's gonna return to the track. Tom later admitted that he never quite felt the same behind the wheel in sprint racing. The crash affected his confidence in the ultra-aggressive environment, where tiny mistake or hesitation could mean another accident. So it was time to move on. Audi engineers had a vision of taking advantage from economical diesel engine and use it for longer stints on Le Mans. When we ignore the atrocious diesel sound, no one could have argued about Audi's idea. It was a huge technological milestone, proving that diesel wasn't just economical, but could also dominate the most brutal race in the world. And who else could have been face of it other than Tom Kristensen? As times of LMP1 were rapidly changing, even Mr. Le Mans himself wasn't always lucky. Combination of crashes, technical difficulties, or just not carrying enough race pace stopped him from winning till 2013. Unfortunately, this year of Le Mans has been also affected by the death of Alan Simonsen early in the race. And after Tom drove the car for the final time in the first place, he gave this victory to Alan and also to recently deceased Father Carl. The next year, 2014, was the last dance for legendary duo of Tom and Audi, but the race itself was brutal. Heavy rain early on caused chaos with cars aquaplaning and safety cars splitting the field, with turbo failure cost Audi big chunks of time. Despite that, they managed to bring the car home second place overall and behind the sister Audi. Tom's career in Le Mans is more than exceptional. However, that's not even a third of his success. He was constantly in demand as a dependable pair of hands, especially back in 1990s. Meanwhile, Tom was building a name in Japan. He also raced in the British Touring Car Championship, where he scored multiple podiums again. Those BTCC weekends proved to teams that Tom could be dropped into anything and deliver the highest results. If that wasn't enough, he also raced in the American Le Mans Series and became a regular fixture in the championship, racking up victories at Sebring, Petit, Laguna Seca and others. However, let's put all of those numbers and statistics aside, because Tom Kristensen became by many hated for being a face of the biggest sandbagging project in Le Mans history. To what extent are these rumors right, I don't know, but Audi's advantage was definitely clear on track. But what else you can possibly race to prove yourself more? The list of series which Tom attended wouldn't even fit to this video, and I have only picked the most important ones. Whatever opinion you have on Tom Kristensen, one thing is certain. Racing world haven't seen many drivers delivering highest results for more than 10 years straight. Tom Kristensen was able to do it for more than 20. Thank you so much for watching and have a nice day. Bye.